Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the annual World Hijab Day conference. And World Hijab Day was founded by Nazma Khan in 2013. And since then, we have World Hijab Day conference every year. More than 195 countries, people from 195 countries participate in this festival every year to celebrate our hijabi sisters around the world. People come with different hashtags, logos, and then we have, all this festival going on for more than a week. So I welcome all of you and thank you for participating in this event. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, accept our intentions to come forward and raise this awareness about hijab. And I would like to welcome our distinguished sisters from different fields and countries. And let's start with Janan. Sister Janan Sarwar is a pharma D in a non-traditional pharmacist environment. She's a publishing professional and global citizen. She actively engages as a pharmacy career coach, a medical writer, public speaker, and most recently is the founder of an independent book publishing company, Global Bookshelves International. She serves as a chief content officer for career coaching company and a medical program manager for continuing medical education company. And she hosts a diverse children's storytelling podcast with her three young daughters called Salam Storytime. In her free time, she can be found reading books with a supportive husband and daughters in her home in Kentucky. Our next guest is Sahar Jabber. She's born and raised in Hamilton, Ontario. She completed double honors in sociology and communications. She resides in Lebanon with her husband and 3-year-old son. She completed several Islamic studies classes. She founded Figs and Olive Publications and published But Why is the Hijab So Special? Intending to educate and inspire young females about the hijab. She also provides a hijab mentorship program to support females interested in taking next big step in wearing the hijab or for those struggling to feel connected to the hijab and who needs advice. Her goals and aspirations in life are to empower the Muslim generation through literature and knowledge. Our next guest is Nour Cauveren. Nour is an ICF certified coach and she specializes in emotional resilience coaching. She uses practical tools to help Muslim women build their emotional resilience and firmly anchor themselves in Allah by letting go of the emotional patterns which hold them back with Allah's permission. Her approach is based on the teachings of Islam. She is furthering her education with a degree in health sciences and Islamic psychology training. She also has a podcast which is called With Love from Nour and is loved with sisters worldwide. And then we have Yumna Saban. Yumna is a professional coach and she's a founder of Akia Coaching Consultants, where she offers various business and coaching services to her global clients. She specializes in women empowerment, small business mentoring, and personal transformation. She has over 20 years of leadership experience in corporate. Academically, she attained her honors in business management and masters in management coaching. She's a mom of four, married for 25 years, mashallah, and she enjoys learning and networking people. And welcome, ladies. I am so honored to share this space with you. And we want to talk about hijab in the workspaces. And since all of you have different experience in different countries and different sectors where you have worked, I think it will be very enriching experience for the viewers to share, your experience with them. That how was your experience as a hijabi person in the workspace? And we will also talk about the hijabophobia. Yes, please. Any one of you would like to share first?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Sana. Just one little thing, the podcast is called From Nour with Love.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, as a labor
Okay.
of love to the people from me. Um, hijab. I think I'm the only revert here. So hijab for me, I was like, what is that? The first time I saw someone wearing it, but I just thought she was so incredibly beautiful. I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is so beautiful with this hijab. That was my first introduction to hijab. And immediately when I became a Muslim, within a month, I decided to wear the hijab, having grown up Christian, really with the belief of you must follow your religion. There's like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So it wasn't so difficult once I put it on, but I really was concerned with how people would think about me. What would they think about me? And alhamdulillah, it was a difficult journey, especially at work. I found that the men loved it. They were like, and I'm talking about non-Muslim men. Of course, Muslim men were very happy and supportive, as well as Muslim women. But the non-Muslim men at my workplace were so supportive, so respectful, so kind, with the exception of one. And the women were haters. They were so mean to me. They were just not even women at work, even women on the street. My non-Muslim friends at the time would say, "Do you notice all the women looking at you?" Because I dressed visibly Muslim, not just with the hijab. At one point, I decided, oh, I can't wear these clothes. That's not appropriate because, of course, I didn't know. And a lot of anger from women in the workplace. Words like, you betrayed us. You have set us back. Is your husband making you wear that? Uh, you're oppressed? And as an educated woman, I would throw back feminism at them, like, aren't we allowed to choose? Are you not supposed to be protecting my rights? My rights to dress however I want? I do not object to you wearing your mini skirt. So why do you object to me covering? But somehow when people have a prejudice, that logical argument is lost because it's all emotion. And alhamdulillah, it did end up with me losing my job. um, although that is not allowed, uh, there are always ways to skirt around the law. And although I had a stellar reputation at work, there was, when someone wants to get rid of you, they'll get rid of you. And it required certain actions to be taken because I am living in Europe where we are protected by certain laws. But I saw it happening, and all the Muslims saw it happening as well and had warned me, perhaps you want to dress less Muslim. Keep your hijab, but wear pants. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. And alhamdulillah, it ended up being one of the best things that ever happened to me, being Allah removing me from that workplace. But that was my first encounter with hijab, and I did take it off for one day. And that one day, I felt like a fraud. And then I never, ever took it off again and feel very comfortable despite the losses. But it is very, very challenging, especially when you have been known not to wear hijab and then to wear it. People can be so angry and they take it so incredibly personal and don't care about what your reasons are. That's my experience.
No, it was a lot of courage, whatever. I mean, we are born Muslims. I think rest all three or four of us. And then it took us a lot of courage as well when I stepped into this journey. And, it was a lot of courage. So when I had to change my client, then I was able to think that, okay, I can now wear hijab because I'm going to the new people. And these people, they don't know me and they will just see me. But when I did my interview with them, it was without hijab. But when I walked in the first day, I was with my scarf and they were shocked. It's like I fooled them. And there was one who even came and asked me, but okay, you weren't wearing anything when you gave the interview. I said, yeah, there were 3 months before, and in these 3 months I decided to wear the scarf and wear the hijab, and then it was okay. But I remember still the look on their faces when I walked in. It's like, who is this person? It was they were expecting someone else, and then someone else walked in the office, so it was a shock.
Yeah, I definitely want to applaud you for your courage. And it takes a lot of
Yeah, it
like,
takes
in
Yeah, and
focus.
I feel, as Noor said, it was more in the eyes of women than in the eyes of men. You can see that,
Yes,
you know.
something very interesting. I was, as you said, I was born and raised in Canada, so my whole life I was in Western public school. I went to a Catholic high school. I wore the hijab when I was 8 years old. I was very excited about wearing it, and in school, I don't think I realized the amount of racism and amount of discrimination and bullying that actually occurred, where like friends just didn't want to be your friends or didn't want to be your partner. I think I was very oblivious to all of it. And now, as a grown up, I'm like, holy, did I seriously go through all that triggers and traumas? And I'm really glad that Allah almost shielded me from all that bullying to actually impact me or affect me. And I think a lot of the time it was because my mom raised us in a society, in a household, where she told us that no matter what anyone does outside of this house, your beliefs is grounded on the principle of God, and so always ground yourself back to that. But so in Canada, alhamdulillah, there wasn't too much racism with job interviews or the idea that I don't want to shake someone's hand. Of course, you have some people that will blatantly look very angry and appalled about that. One guy, when I didn't, when I asked him just kindly, my apologies, I don't shake hands for religious reasons. He just walked away. He didn't even just like welcome me in. But the other aspect of it was that's more saddening is in a country like Lebanon, where it's very diverse. You have Catholics, you have different various forms of Muslims all living together, and they live predominantly good together. There aren't that many clashes. Yet here, they will blatantly discriminate against you if you wear the hijab, even if they themselves are Muslims. So in the job interview, they will say on the like on the posting, they'll say no woman that wears a hijab is allowed to apply to this. Or on the phone interview, they'll ask you, "Are you wearing the hijab?" Especially if you have a name that's not specifically Muslim. And this is, a majority of people in this country are Muslims. Yet because there hasn't been enough uproar, because the Muslims are quiet about their rights within this country, um, it is what it is. And so many talented women do not have the opportunity to work here. And we know a lot of the problem outside of Lebanon and in Canada is that the hijab, unfortunately, has been reduced to a socio-cultural meaning. So it's overly simplified, it's racist, and it can be misogynistic, discrimination, and attributes that are actually added into the infrastructure of what a hijab means. And so it ranges from symbolic representations of oppression to domestic principles of equality. And, the stigma of radical Islamic beliefs is, and the more commonly the oppression of women, is all put into the symbolic representation of what a hijab is.
That's
And
true.
so, it's such a difficult thing, especially within Western societies, where it can be confusing as to why would you put yourself in a position that's limiting your freedom, not recognizing that wearing the hijab actually allows you to overcome any barriers that would not allow you to reach your freedom. So definitely, it's a difficult thing within the workplace, and a lot of work needs to be done specifically within Lebanon territories.
Yeah, it's amazing to know that, because you expect that this is a country in the Middle East with so diverse background that people, some of the countries, people even wear hijab, even if they're Catholic and all, out of culture. That, but then if you hear this, yeah, a lot of work needs to be done. A rework needs to be done, actually.
May I ask you a question about that? Because I had a similar experience in Morocco where I was considering working there, and my husband said, but you can't wear hijab at work. And I was like, what? It's a Muslim country. My question is it because of the influence of the West, or is it because of an internalized fear of someone wearing hijab might end up being, I don't know what the fear would be. From what I
No,
heard in Morocco, was a fear
yeah,
of being too religious.
yeah, definitely. That's exactly it. It's a fear of moving away from the representation of what a Western, high achieved individual would
Mm,
look like. Um, so to them, the hijab is literally a representation of someone that's limited, a limited being, an oppressed woman, incapable of formulating her own opinions or her own thoughts. And so it doesn't matter how many PhDs you have. If you wear the hijab, you will literally not get accepted for the job, even if your credentials are 10 times better than the other person. And so, yeah, it's very, very disappointing. Even here within Lebanon, you'll see that a university will actually hire an American or, a British for a position, even though that person applying might actually have graduated from that university over their own,
mm,
because they believe in the power of a Western education or a Western concepts. Especially colonialism has such a huge impact. Lebanon until today is still following French education system. It makes no sense. Um, we we've so internalized the hierarchy that we've forgotten our own superiority within it. So yeah, it's definitely all about the limitation of what a woman can do wearing the hijab.
subhanAllah. My personal experience as someone who didn't cover, I felt so sexualized and so uncomfortable when I wasn't covered, even before I became a Muslim in the workplace. And having colleagues say to me things like, and I'm talking about male colleagues, yeah, 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 you have such a nice shape. Why don't you show some more cleavage? Put some lipstick on. Just show yourself. And just, I was like, very uncomfortable. So when the idea of that is a form of oppression, I felt not covering oppressed. And the moment I started to cover, I felt liberated, free, empowered, able to be truly who I am and speak my mind and put people into their right place when they got out of order. Whereas before, when I was uncovered, I didn't feel that. There was a sort of nakedness that really pierced into my soul. And of course, I wasn't a Muslim, so I didn't understand what it was, but there was like this pressure all the time to be sexualized. And the most beautiful comment that I had when I started to wear the jilbab was my brother said to me, and he's a non Muslim, "You look so incredibly beautiful. Don't you feel amazing not having to worry about the way you look and everyone um, sexualizing you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I totally do feel amazing." And he was like, "I love the way you dressed. You just look so beautiful." And that's why I said men understand because they know their own natural fitra, but women have, what concerns me is that women, including Muslim women, have internalized the narrative that we must be sexualized and sexualize ourselves to be empowered. But that narrative is a false narrative, which even non-Muslims recognize. One of the quotes that I love is from a book called The Lolita Effect. And she said in an interview, um, under the guise of empowering women, we have completely disempowered women. I'm paraphrasing. And that's what I see with the whole feminist movement, the Western ideology of we must be an empowered, beautiful, sexy woman. It has disempowered women, and in particular in the workplace. I would hear what the men would say about certain women who were dressed very sexy. They had no respect for them. So, how are you empowered? And why can't we as Muslim women dress the way we want to dress?
I
Yeah, and
just
I
want
would
to add.
like to add one point like, as Muslim women or any women, covered or not covered, I mean, you get a lot of attention from men for being a woman. So if you are not wearing a hijab or wearing clothes which are more sexualizing you or enhancing your beauty, the most 90% of the attention is because of who you are as, in your physical appearance and shape, and very little about what is inside your head or what you want to say. And I figured it out when I wore hijab, because all that 90% of attention was gone. And I was like, what's happening? Why nobody's looking at me? Why nobody's listening to me? Because all that attention was how I was looking, So I figured out that nobody was actually listening what I have to say, and they didn't even think I was intelligent or my work was good, but the focus was on how I was looking. And then it took me some time, and for them as well, to listen to me more, to pay more attention, and then recognize me for my work and not for as a woman or how I look. So yeah, for me it was other way around, Noor. Oh,
So I just want to add a quick quote by Francis Fanon on the topic of what Nour said. Um, the woman who sees without being seen frustrates the colonizer. By abjuring Western standards of liberation, she asserts an identity and even power of her own, thus refusing to acknowledge the validity of an inherent power in her colonizer's unveiling, subjugation, and rape of her own culture. So it's definitely within the topic.
yeah.
Very, very powerful. And I do recognize, I studied post-colonial literature, and I do recognize colonization. I'm coming from people who were slaves, who were colonized, former colonies. And the scary part is that it's internalized. And it's internalized to the point where we have adopted the idea of, yes, we are free and liberated, but you must be free and liberated within the context of what I tell you. And then to step out of that as Muslims, as non-Muslims, and to really understand, what does it mean to be free and liberated? And why can't someone worship and dress the way that they want to? Is the
Yeah.
question that, I still ponder all the time.
No, I think we have to keep asking until it goes to everyone's, soul, that they ask that, why I don't like hijab, why I don't like women in hijab. They have to sit back and answer that question themselves. It's a soul searching for them, not for us. And Yumna, how was your experience? You have so much experience working in
Um,
corporate, so much men in
um,
South Africa. Tell us
yes,
about it.
Alhamdulillah. So, from a personal perspective, we were brought up quite modern. My mom was a dressmaker, and she would dress us up as young girls, with these little frilly dresses and ribbon in the hair and stuff like that. And hijab wasn't necessarily. She wore her scarf, but it wasn't full hijab. And then after my dad had passed, she married a tabligh who was obviously much more religious and all of that. And she immediately went into hijab. And as three young teenage girls, we were, what is going on? Suddenly we were forced to dress properly in hijab, wore these Punjabi suits for Eid. It was just a complete 360, and the family observed it. And family, although they kind of accepted it, they were all, the eyebrows were raised, like, what's going on now? Is this the new, family and stuff like that? So within the three little sisters, I was the one that was very much compliant because I'm the older one. And the other two were just rebellious, and they were very verbal about it. But anyway, alhamdulillah. And as we grew up, I went to work in various corporates where I obviously had noticed that there was a different set of rules for people, a woman within hijab, wearing hijab, to a point whereby I went through the rebellious stage, and I was married at that point, also got married to a Muslim husband, and very cultural and very religious as well. So it was easy for me to conform into the family because that was the way of life, obviously. And I went through a rebellious stage, and I took off my scarf, for about a week. And I had then noticed that suddenly my senior, who was a female at that point, started including me in certain things, started asking opinions, started talking about my future. I mean, in literally 1 week. And I just didn't understand, because for me it was, I was surrounded by a young, vibrant group of people, male and female, but it almost felt like I was classed to be much older when I wore my hijab. And that was one of the first kind of interactions or observations that I had. And at that, there was a function or a party planned that specific week, and we all had to dress up. And I then dressed up, and I didn't wear my hijab that day. And a Muslim woman offered me a drink. Okay. And that was the most profound moment for me in realizing that this was not who I wanted to be. You know, if it then meant that if I wore my scarf, no one was going to offer that versus not wearing it and someone would offer me a drink, then that would be the deciding factor for me at that point. I was in my early 20s, so quite impressionable still, I would think. And Alhamdulillah, I've been wearing my scarf. I found I myself, and I'm not sure if it's because of the way that hijab was introduced to me, that I always found a better way to pin my scarf, right? So it wasn't the full hijab, the long meters of scarf. It was more the turban with a high shirt, So I kind of tried to find a little bit of my own style within the workplace. However, I worked at Amazon. I was lucky enough to travel with Amazon, and it was just after 2011. And the next rude awakening was at Amsterdam Airport, Schiphol Airport, and where I was pulled out. And my manager in South Africa told me, Yumna, get rid of the scarf, wear a cap or a hoodie so that there's not a lot of attention drawn to you. But as it stood, I was, it's my scarf. I'm not going to do that, So I was brave enough to wear my scarf. And on Amsterdam Airport, they pulled me out and said, where are you going? What was the last country you traveled? And I said, Saudi Arabia, because we went for Hajj before that. And I was pulled out of the line. I was searched. My luggage was thrown out. It was chaos. I actually traveled without my luggage then because they had held it back. But that was the first rude awakening around how I was prejudiced. It was raw and it was in my face at that moment. And I didn't know if I should be shocked or if I should just say, it's okay. Although I had all my documents from work to say I'm cleared for travel, it just felt so heartbreaking and painful in a very deep personal sense, But Alhamdulillah, I traveled back and I wore my cap because of the trauma that I had experienced. But I came back, and what has transpired now, and I think we are very lucky in South Africa, is that due to the apartheid era, there was this obviously grave prejudice against certain groups of people with a certain color, and Alhamdulillah, because of that transition that the South Africans had gone through, there is a much greater tolerance for diversity with regards to how you dress and how you look and so forth. So I have to say that we are much more comfortable today wearing hijab and not feeling like we are discriminated against in the workplace specifically. People who wear full hijab are respected as the woman that I've worked with and the environments, because I've worked in about 4 or 5 different huge corporates, even in the government sector. You no longer feel like you are different. Yes, you get the odd 1 or 2 people that you can visibly see, might have an issue. But for me personally, Alhamdulillah, it's been more a case of what you could present and how you would work. Your work would speak for you. So I was even offered to go and do my namaz on a Friday at Jumu'ah, So to me, I think in South Africa, there's just been a greater tolerance for this. My sisters, who are still a little rebellious, I'm the only one who still wears my hijab of the 3 sisters. And they would say, sure, Yumna, you know what? You look so much older when you wear your hijab. And I find it within us as a little group. I mean, that's just a shocker. But I just, because I am the way I am, I just continue with the way that I am. It doesn't even faze me anymore. And my mom kind of would always talk about, guys, you should wear your hijab. And it just also reflects the point around when people are forced to wear hijab versus their own personal choice, as well as the support around them, and which will either make it easier or actually make it harder. So, Alhamdulillah, I have to say that in Cape Town itself, in South Africa, the Muslim communities are respected as much as any other community. We have a voice. We will do our walks and our call for freedom and our support for Palestine. And you actually feel united when you wear your hijab because you are seen to be part of a respectable community, alhamdulillah. So come on over to South Africa. We're kidding.
Inshallah.
I mean,
Inshallah. And Janan, coming to you now.
Yes,
How was your experience as a hijabi person in Kentucky, USA? I have
yes,
never traveled there. I have no idea. Just what I read in the newspaper and what I watch.
yeah. I would love to have any of you come visit. My experience has been an interesting and dynamic one. I grew up in the rural South in the United States. I've lived in Washington, D.C. area, worked in nonprofit space, the corporate space, and now again, Kentucky is considered in the South. And this time, throughout all of this time and prior, I've been wearing hijab. I was just counting, it's been over 20 years. And I personally have evolved with the hijab as well. As far as in the workplace, I find it's this dichotomy of being both empowering. I've heard these words said by the sisters here, offering a layer of protection, recognition, and respect. I also have found an opposite impact of being isolating in a way that I often have found myself in spaces where I was the only one wearing hijab or the only Muslim or the only visible Muslim. And when that happens, you feel that this spotlight is on you. You're standing out in a different way, maybe not from showing up. It's just a different layer of suddenly you're receiving more attention because you stand out, and that also impacts you because you have to represent not only yourself, but represent Islam and these stereotypes. I often, when I first meet people, people assume a lot of things. So the word assumption is a word I recognize and really comes with wearing a hijab, what people expect to think of you. And, there are many unconscious biases that people may have. I recognize, though, now as I've grown up with the hijab, that it's incredible opportunity, actually, to be able to use this. Often I am the only working Muslim someone has met in the different spaces that I've been. And alhamdulillah, I try to use it as a way to model and show empathy, but we're human. And it's an interesting challenge. But overall, I have had both good and bad, and I'm sure we'll get to talking about certain and specific examples, but that's been my experience. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I think I can relate to all of you. I think, and we all can relate to each other, in our experiences so far with the hijab. And now I think I would like to talk about hijabophobia. That, okay, we had our own personal struggles, and then we had this hijabophobia, which came more as Islamophobia, like people, when they see you as more as a fanatic, they see you as a very fundamentalist, and I don't know, it's like, I mean, for men, if they're not wearing the small cap or a beard, is the all the attention has come on the women itself in this environment or age wherever we are living. So it's very easy to spot, a hijabi person and say, okay, she's a practicing person. I remember in one of my trip when I went to Israel for work, I wasn't wearing hijab then. So it was only a question, are you a Muslim or not? And if you're Muslim, there is another lane for it. And I was like, what? It never happened on any airport in the world that if you're a Muslim, there is another lane for you. And there is a special interrogation and checking and things and stuff. And then people I traveled with, and they were like, Sana, why do you have to mention it? Because they were worried for me. And they were like, okay, you just have to pass and say, you don't look. I said, no, I cannot, why should I lie? And I'm not ashamed of who I am. So let them ask me whatever they have to ask. But that was also like a turning point. That, and then they were asking me questions like, how much practicing Muslim are you? And then I was like, I'm a Muslim, so I'm practicing. And what do you think? Do you pray 5 times? I said yes. And do you read Quran? I said yes. And then it was like, but I was not wearing a scarf then, and a scarf is really a symbol of more, like towards, they count it as more fundamental, or I don't know, whatever is inside their minds. But that was also like a big turning point for me. So whenever I think back of my hijab journey, I mean, that was like an awakening moment, that hey, that's wherever you go, if you're a Muslim, you're a Muslim. And people were also like differentiating between, like, you're not like that kind of Muslim, when they say to a hijabi woman. And then I was like, maybe I'm same from inside, I'm doing the same. So why so much distinction for them, or seeing them another in a bad light or a spotlight, and then considering me as a very, open or liberal kind of version. So yeah, I mean, I was like, I'm a Muslim, and I'm like any other Muslim woman who's practicing. That was like one of the turning points when I started my hijab, and I started thinking about it, And then hijabophobia, yeah. I mean, the first time I experienced the hijabophobia was without hijab at the Israel airport, where I was asked to choose another lane, because of my religion. But that was my first incident where I would say, okay, where I see that, okay, there were visible Muslim women. And then because I said, okay, I'm a Muslim, I was asked to stand in the line. And then, after that, there was some attack in Brussels. It was 2015 or 2018. It was hard at the airports. It was really, really hard. All the eyes were on you wherever you are going, if you're a hijabi person. And then they ask you to remove the scarf if you can. And if you're not, yeah, the checking was entirely, they could put almost fingers into your brain, when they're checking. And you feel that kind of energy from them, when you sense the energies, you feel that sometimes some people are very kind and gentle and polite, and then sometimes you feel that, okay, they're not very, there's something behind more that checking. So that feeling and energy. As a hijabi person on the airport, I think so much anxiety I have when I travel, anywhere. If I have to travel at the airport, and then I have to get checked, it's like it comes back, that 2018, 2019, what happens at the airport when I was traveling. And let's talk about more hijabophobia at the workplace. So I will let you all speak and then tell my experience.
So now I was just thinking, what, when just to add to what you were saying earlier about the airport, it took me right back into that room where they were searching me, and it was a gentleman and a female. So the female did the physical search and stuff like that. And because I felt very uncomfortable, I started talking. So I babbled, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, this is part of the process. And they just ignored me. I mean, there was no response. The gentleman had this, this, just this
No
look,
expression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
They're like, shut up.
yeah, she wore gloves as if I was filthy. And then she put her hands in the side of my undies, and that shocked me. I was, I think at that point, if there was anything that would shut me up, it was that. I was like, okay, now I'm not going to talk anymore, because I couldn't understand at that point. I mean, I just used to see things on the news and on the radio. I didn't think that I was ever going to be in such a situation because I wore my scarf. And I just think, yeah, it's just terrible. I mean, to think even that men who might not be showing that they are Muslim, with a beard, and they might not be, but their passports might show that their names are Muhammad or whatever it is. Even at that point, they were called out just because of their name. And it really was just one of those rude awakening moments. And when I came back, I remember telling my family that we should be very lucky, that it is very hard for people to travel, but we should also be grateful that we don't have as bad a situation as we have here in South Africa, But yeah, alhamdulillah. I think I covered most of the work examples
Yeah.
earlier, but I'll give one of the other sisters a chance, inshallah.
Yeah, that airport is like the worst example of wherever you can experience the hijabophobia. I always
And
have
I
anxiety for traveling. For that, I will be checked. That kicks in, and I can't do much about it.
Alhamdulillah. Actually, your stories reminded me that I did experience that, but I have selective amnesia for things that traumatize me. And I did experience that in the airport in London, and I was traveling with a person who's an atheist, and she was more horrified than I was, but by that time I was already used to it. I was like, oh, it's normal. And it's in that instance where people who maybe don't believe, because there's always this idea of you're exaggerating, but then they see it themselves and they experience it themselves, and then they start to question. But Sana, what you said, what happened to you in Israel, those questions, I think that is at the heart of hijabophobia, Islamophobia. It's a it goes beyond, um, are you practicing? Is this sort of fear? Because one of my non-Muslim friends that I went to university with, she said, it's not so much about you being a Muslim, it is about you being visibly someone who is devoted to God. That's what freaks people out. And she was living in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood in New York where women would dress visibly Jewish and they would experience similar things. And I think all eyes are on Muslim women now because of 9/11, because of the war in Afghanistan, in Iraq. Now we are experiencing this because we represent a symbol of religiosity, and that's what frightens people. I have lost friends because their partners could not handle me being a Muslim because of that fear. Praying 5 times a day. What do you mean you pray 5 times a day? That's so excessive. But it goes far deeper into, what people's own relationship with the creator or lack thereof. So it's much, much deeper than just you are a Muslim. You strike a chord in people and you can see it in their eyes. You can see those who either have a longing for what you have or those who are completely terrified. I have seen it. I'm an observer of people, and I have seen it in their eyes and their behavior and their words afterwards confirm it. And some of them even tell me, some of them come to me and say things like, it must be so comfortable to be a Muslim because you know how to live your life. And others say, I can't imagine being told what to do. And all of those things are taken into the workplace because, of course, we are in the workplace who we are. And then, as Muslim women in the workplace, you're having to deal with all of that and trying to create your own space and be your own person at work, be that colleague, be who you are meant to be at work. But all of the fact that you are Muslim and a visible Muslim woman is still there, always lingering in the background, and you'll notice it come up when there are problems. Then you'll notice it come up. Um, that was my personal experience.
Yeah, I think so. That comes up. And I think it's also the fear of unknown and what they're associating your hijab with. So it's really that fear of Islam and that you worship. Yeah, like
A lot
when
of
we
it,
are around people who are not worshiping or who are not believing, we give a like a kind of impression, there's a fear instilled somehow. But I feel like as a, hijabophobia in my workplace, I wasn't acknowledged. Like people say when they're walking through, there is a culture to say hello or good morning or whatever. So they will just skip you, like you don't exist. Even in elevators, you meet people, they will say hello to everyone and they will just skip you. They will skip the eye contact. So I experienced those kind of things. Or like I was in a party at my work. It was like 5 years back. And then there was one of the managers who walked up and told me, "Oh, now you start wearing hijab. It will be very difficult for us to find you another project." And then, you are a person who has just started to wear hijab. So you had your own going on thought process, you have fears, and then someone coming up and walking and confirming your fears. So I mean, I had quite many shares, so but I'm very lucky, alhamdulillah, that my team recognizes me for my work and they're okay, and I never faced that kind of energy in my team. But it's a big organization. You meet like many hundreds of people, you see them per day, and then you see their reactions. So most of the time I am non-existent, like they didn't see me. And it could be a big official or a manager at a high position, so he knows everyone in the team and he will say hello. But if he meets me outside the team, he doesn't recognize me. It's like, okay, because at work it's professional and it's in the team, but now it's outside in the building, if I'm getting a coffee, I will not say hello to you. You don't exist for me. So they are very subtle form of fears and hijabophobia, but this is what I've experienced. It wasn't very verbal or aggressive, except one or two where they started, discussion of what I wear. But it came out from Islam to Muslim, and then women to what I wear, and then their own ways of discussing that. Why do you have to hide your hair? What is so special about your hair? What is so special about you that we are so dying to see your hair and you are hiding it from us? So those kind of questions I experienced. But now I think I'm so comfortable and I understand, from which place it is coming. I'm okay. But as a young person who is just wearing a hijab, I feel it's still very hard, and it's a difficult journey. And I would ask you what suggestions and advices you will give to those young girls or anyone, young or old, thinking to wear a hijab at the workplace.
That's actually a beautiful question. Like what advice to give to a woman that's working and in the workspace. Of course, it can't be a general advice because you have, your culture and your community and your country differentiates a lot, such as Germany, where there's a ban for the hijab, or in Quebec or in France, again ban for the hijab. Um, it's funny, even within Quebec, there's the grandfather rule law. So if you were wearing the hijab before they banned the hijab, you're allowed to wear the hijab. But if there's any promotion given to you, then they actually cannot allow you to take that promotion unless you take off the hijab, even if you're within the same community. And so it's very unfortunate, and it has a lot to do with the master status. What is the master status? What is the most optimal form of identity within a community? However, a girl that's going to work has to know, wearing the hijab has to know that the priority of her wearing the hijab is before her job. So if a job is telling you, I will not accept you to wear the hijab, then let it be. Do not accept me, and I do not accept you. That's what it is. We do not change our standards for the imposed discrimination that they are offering. No, if they are blatantly discriminating against you, go and fight for your rights, if the country, of course, allows you to. However, I would never advise a woman to actually then take off the hijab, because alhamdulillah, there are a lot of options, such as in Quebec. If a woman takes off the hijab for a job, you can literally travel 20 minutes, reside in Ottawa, which is a different province within Quebec, within Canada, and now you don't have to take off the hijab. So there's options, alhamdulillah. It's not at a threatening moment. However, I understand it can be difficult. Again, I've been bullied, I've been discriminated within the workplace a lot, and so I understand it. But our principles come first, and what's profound is to actually, if you do get hired, if you do get accepted within the job, within the workplace, and specifically if it's within a community that's new to the understanding of what a hijab is, there's nothing wrong with offering to put a presentation, a slideshow, a 10-minute slideshow, or an email out to the co-host. Hey, I know I'm the only visible minority here wearing the hijab. If you have any questions, I'm more than willing to speak to you at 11 o'clock today for coffee and tea. I'm here to answer any questions. And if I wanted to extend this idea to supporting our children, wearing the hijab. A mother that sees that her daughter is going to a school with no Muslims. I was one of the only few Muslims within the school. We were the few. There was no one. We lived in Niagara Falls. It's like there's barely a few population. Um, what a mother can do to support her daughter is actually come with her daughter the first day that she wears the hijab to the school and tell the teacher, I want to actually give a presentation to the children. I want them to, get excited get some balloons, get a cake, get a gift for every child, something small. Make it a celebration so that they can ask questions. Why does she hide her hair? Why can't she touch boys that are of this age? Why does it mean that, we have to be respectful for? If a mother does that for her daughter, number one, you're removing her fear. You're showing her that you have the utmost support. You're allowing people around her to not stigmatize her anymore and to accept her for who she is and to see that, hey, she has a backbone supporting. A child is less likely to bully another child if he knows that his parents are actually involved and will speak out if any discrimination occurs. She's also showing the school that I'm serious about my daughter wearing the hijab and I support her rights and I support everything. And if anyone has a problem, they can come to me, not to my daughter. And this also allows the daughter to then have a weight lifted off of her shoulders. And so this idea can be used in different methods within the workforce. When I was in high school, I went to St. John de Brebeuf in Hamilton. It was the only Catholic school that had just allowed Muslim women to wear the hijab. Before that, you were not allowed to wear a hijab if you were in that school. So many teachers refused this idea. Especially the religious teachers. Some of them try to teach you out of your ways. There was one individual who was in charge of the religious committee. He actually integrated me so much so that when I told him I actually want to be a TV anchor for the news in the morning, he allowed it, and I was the first hijabi woman in that school to be a news anchor for the morning news, and it allowed the concept of diversity to be that much more powerful within the community, even though we were only 5 Muslims within a population of 1,000 students. So definitely find your way to integrate yourself. Find a position in a time to allow people to ask questions. Don't be afraid of their questions, or don't feel like they don't have a voice. No, they're allowed to question your rights, your laws. However, provide a safe space in which you feel comfortable, you feel prepared, so it doesn't come as a shock to you. And then lastly, I would tell the girl, if she hasn't worn the hijab yet and is about to within the workforce, to actually give everyone a heads up. Tell them on January 29th, I'm going to be coming to work wearing the hijab. And I would really appreciate it if I can have your utmost respect. All of this preparation is important. Don't keep that day to yourself. Don't keep thinking that you have to be on this journey of the hijab alone. No, include, diversify, find your voice.
Thank you, sir. It was wonderful. I never thought it that way. I think I was very defensive for my hijab always. And yeah, it gave me another view or perspective to see in that way, that if you invite and include people, so I'm sure there will be all kind of people which will come. Some will come to understand you, and some will come to mock you and ridicule you as well. So you are opening both the windows, but I think if you're ridiculed, you will get hasanat for it. And another point is people will understand you, and they're less scared of you. You're open, you can talk, you're still so human and reachable. And then I think it's a win-win. What are you saying? It's like
it is.
Us.
Yeah, because I work with my clients all the time when they come to the mentorship program, to the hijab mentorship program, and they tell me, I'm worried my parents are gonna be so afraid to see me wearing the hijab. And I tell them that all the time. You have to show them that you're grounded with your principles and you're excited and you believe in what you're doing, you're passionate, you're on this high. And once they see you that high, they're actually going to be like, hey, how do I get up there? How do I understand what's happening with her? And so you have to really illuminate everything you believe in what the hijab is. And of course, if we were to talk about how incredibly beautiful the hijab is right now, we wouldn't end. And so definitely including people that you love and people and seeing that their opinion, their thoughts is actually important as well to take into consideration. It's not all about you. You actually have to make sure that the environment around you feels safe. Just like you want to feel safe, allow them to feel safe as well. And through discussion, through literature, through knowledge, all of that can hopefully be occurred.
I love this. And I think you answered my second question as well, that what is our message for the non-Muslim people? Like what are their concerns and how they can deal around people who wear hijab? Sometimes I feel they avoid eye contact or things because they don't know what to do. It's like maybe you will not like it, and it's like to shake hand or not. So it's like a zone which is unknown, and I will just avoid it. So if you invite them, it's like, okay, she's okay, you're giving them like that kind of message that I'm open, I'm reachable, we can talk about it. I really like this idea.
I'd love to share. I loved what everyone has said so far, and Sahar specifically. It was beautiful advice. One thing I think about often, over this journey is that sometimes there are very clear experience where this is hijabophobia. So, for example, for me, in my youth, there's been boys that have tried to pull off my hijab. There was a young girl, every morning at the beginning of class, she would tell the whole rest of the class that I didn't have ears, and that's why I wore a hijab. And those little things, that at that time silly or sounds silly now, but these things impact you. I also worked, as I think I mentioned, or sister mentioned, that I'm a pharmacist, and I worked in a physical pharmacy. People would assume that I couldn't speak English and throw change at me in this rural area in Tennessee, where the idea, maybe because of their fear or because of the media representation of what Islam and what it means to wear a hijab, you always have to think, where are the people who are doing these, where is this coming from? And my advice to all of us and to young women who are in the workplace is to really try to think before you think something is discrimination. We all have, each of us here on this panel and in the workforce, we have so many different principles and parts of who we are. There's an intersectionality. We may be young, and maybe something that you're facing is not necessarily because of the actual hijab. Maybe there's ageism. We're women, and women in the workplace, you can relate, hijab or not. There's a discrimination or things that you face. Perhaps you're coming from an underrepresented or minority group, and that could be where a bias is coming from. And of course, perhaps it is a religious reason. My advice often to colleagues, I happen to do career coaching as well, is to really treat each interaction that you have with someone with empathy and compassion, taking some of these principles that Sister Sahar was saying, that, if we can think about issues that are here, that are dividing us, find ways to even think about how you can have that compassion and relate. The issues that divide us often pale into comparison to the topics that can unite us, which is, as Sister Sahar was saying, hey, I'm going to do this thing, I'm scared, or not scared, I'm nervous, or this is really important to me. People can relate and resonate to that. So being proactive, being that voice of saying, I know I'm doing this and I'm the only one here that does this, being open to questions, and for those who are non-Muslim, feeling comfortable to ask. That may be scary for some people, to find out, to be that ambassador, or to be able to suddenly have to represent Islam, or why you're doing a certain thing. Maybe you have a different reason. We need things like World Hijab Day, that it's not just your individual story. You represent you, and maybe your reason is different from others, but having these forums, having these ways for people that are non-Muslim to learn and understand is just so important. And I really hope that we can embody that Islam and a hijab can mean more, and it is very beautiful. It can be peaceful. We can be just and have grace. without people assuming that assumption that really hurts me the most. The biggest bias that I receive is that, oh, you must be the exception, Janan. You know, you are different than the rest of, you're not like the others. You're not, you know, you're just different. And unfortunately, I don't want that to be what people think. So I'll leave you with that. It's a lot of work to do, but it's an empowering thing, and I hope we can come from a place of power.
Thank you
Sure.
so much, Janan. It was really beautiful, your message. And I could relate that thing that people have who have hijabophobia and Islamophobia, when they have Muslim friends, they say, I like my friend, you're really nice, but others are not like you. Mm-mm. So, yeah, but it's still, if we can remove one fear at a time from one person, I think we can still be happy that, okay, slowly and slowly, inshallah, with World Hijab Day conference, with these dialogues. And like Sahar said, I really like that if we include people rather than keep, they attack us and we defend. There are a lot of people who really want to understand, and hijab is beautiful. I want to give this message to all the women who want to wear hijab, that it is beautiful. It doesn't limit your beauty. And your beauty is your inner beauty, and nothing can hide it. And the more
Absolutely.
you hide that physical aspect, your mirror will be more reflected from inside. Like you will see people. It's not me talking words, but if you will wear hijab and then you continue the journey, you will see it for yourself. And then include people, let them ask questions, answer to them. And as like every one of us said, that there will be, it's not like a cakewalk, easy walk. There will be hurdles, there will be fears, there will be at moments when there are doubts coming in, but just hold on. Hold on to that. And there is our email as well of the World Hijab Day. You can write to us, and we will see how best we can navigate you through their videos, their messages, to keep motivating you. And thank you so much. Thank you, all of us, all my dear friends who came up for this initiative. I really thank all of you.